Meanwhile, Donald Trump, you see the gift that keeps giving? He's causing a social and political revolution that's, sweeping Australia too, and some people simply can't take it. I mean, like staff at a Melbourne restaurant, St Kilda, who kicked out Angelo Notta for wearing some Trump merch. His Make America Great Again hat.
Yesterday, all of a sudden, I get told to take it off, otherwise I'll be evicted out of the venue, and I was embarrassed. Yeah, I was embarrassed. Well, I was told it was political incitement, which I think is completely nonsense. It wasn't. I was actually just having a bad hair day, and I liked the hat and I wanted to wear it.
Joining me is Rowan Dean, Editor-in-Chief of the brilliant Spectator Australia. I subscribe to it. Do yourself a favour and do the same. He's also a host of Outsiders every Sunday at 9 a.m, plus host of a new show he'll tell you about in a minute. Rowan, great to see you. Look, I'm wondering, what sort of incitement are they talking about? What might he incite by wearing that hat in their restaurant? A war, a full-out riot, or just the fact, some staff thinking we don't like Trump? What is it?
Well, the reality is, Andrew, I was going to put my MAGA hat on. Unfortunately, I didn't want to, being a Sky host, I didn't want to mess up my perfectly, hair that was coming to within an inch. So we'll have to wait to wear that some other time. But I have several MAGA hats, and they're fantastic. But the reality is, and this bloke is found out, that there are still, believe it or not, after 8 years, there are still people, I'm sure there are in the States far less so, but certainly here in Australia, who are repelled and appalled by the MAGA hat. They've kind of missed the election that went on. They've missed the fact that Donald Trump is not the devil. He's not Hitler. He's not all the things that we were told he was. He is, in fact, in my opinion, going to be the best president, certainly for of our lifetimes. And we should be proud to wear and display our loyalty to the American leader as a kind of fun thing to do and a fun thing to wear without upsetting people. But this guy found out there are still Australians who are mired in this vile Trump derangement syndrome, who refuse to accept the reality that it's a new world that we're living in.
I notice I haven't heard a single story yet of someone being chucked out of a Melbourne restaurant for wearing a Palestinian scarf.
Yes.
But apparently a Trump hat, now that is what crosses the line. What I actually appreciated most about your answer, by the way, Rowan, is that viewers will now know that, like Boris Johnson, that wild disorder of that great mane of hair is actually carefully coiffed and cannot be disturbed even by a hat.
Right. So
we admire that. But speaking of Donald Trump, I was stunned and amazed by his new White House spokeswoman today. She's actually the youngest ever in that job, Karoline Leavitt. She's just 27 years old. But boy, was she giving it to the Trump haters in her first White House briefing. It was such sass, like this answer about the illegal immigrants that Trump is now getting kicked out of the country.
How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
Bang, Rowan, I couldn't do that at 27. No nonsense, straight to the point, courage, detail. By the way, I think the way that she answered is a lesson that many Liberal MPs could learn, faced by ABC journalists or whatever, although I have to give Peter Dutton huge credit. He does give it right back as well.
Yeah, I think this is the new era of political leaders being honest. The days of spin, of all those advisors telling our politicians, oh, don't say this, you'll offend so-and-so. Make sure you mention this point. That's your talking points. There used to be, and there probably still are, these dreadful talking points that were handed around, certainly by Labor politicians and by Liberal politicians back in the kind of Turnbull and Morrison days. I don't know if they're still being handed around, but the reality is they shouldn't need to be. Because if you are the political leader, if you are a senior politician or any politician, you should be able to answer any question instantly, straight from the heart on your fundamental basic principles. Maybe you need to fill in some of the specific detail at a later point, but you should be able to tell the truth on any single issue. And this is what drives me absolutely bonkers about all our politicians in Australia. Less so the coalition, but they are still part of it. This kind of constant, we mustn't say this because that's the right thing to do strategically. The focus group said this or whatever. Speak from the heart, be truthful and be honest, and the public will follow you and believe in you and listen to what you have to say. Now, this is the template that Donald Trump has set. And he has surrounded himself by people who are following this to the T. There's no filter. There's no kind of, oh, I better not say this. And we saw this in the nomination hearings. We saw this during his signing of the executive orders. Oh, yeah, this is a big one. This is a good one. All this sort of stuff. Be honest. Tell the truth. Be straight with the public. Talk to the public as if you're talking to your best mate or a close friend, and you'll go places. And this is what the Donald Trump White House is doing. What a change, Andrew, from that ghastly Karine Jean-Pierre, who was a DEI pick, who stumbled around, who lied repeatedly. The American people know what a liar she was because they saw the decrepit Joe Biden, and yet there she was every day fronting up saying, oh, no, this guy's great. He's fit. He's doing sit-ups, running around. He's the smartest person in the room.
Oh, my God, I just saw him show jumping and, oh, well, that man, what action man.
Running the 50th 3-minute mile.
Yeah, I think you've just embarrassed me, by the way, Rowan, because I actually remember being paid by taxpayers to write talking points for Labor Party MPs in one election campaign. Sorry about that. There was an interesting
I love the idea of Labor
announced...
getting Andrew Bolt to write their talking points. If they did that, they would probably win the next election, Andrew.
Would I love that job right now, Rowan? There was a really interesting change, I think, that Leavitt announced for who could get into the White House briefings now, which journalists and whatever, and who got to ask questions. The mainstream media there is now going to be joined by the new media, including the kind of podcasters and influencers who actually helped get Donald Trump elected. Have a listen to her.
And in keeping with this revolutionary media approach that President Trump deployed during the campaign, the Trump White House will speak to all media outlets and personalities, not just the legacy media who are seated in this room. Because according to recent polling from Gallup, Americans' trust in mass media has fallen to a record low.
That's going to break the power of the mainstream media, which has largely been hijacked by the left, to act as a gatekeeper to the information, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's their own fault, let's be honest. The public have been educated since COVID. Much of what the mainstream media told them repeatedly and insistently during COVID, they now know to be false. There were a few people, like myself and people on Sky News and elsewhere in the mainstream media, who refused to buckle to that intimidation. But by and large, the majority of the mainstream media in the West towed the government line and were worse than Pravda, just spouting government policy and refusing to countenance any alternative. The public saw that. The public turned to social media. They then had, as I said, the Karine Jean-Pierre, Joe Biden fiasco, where they were being lied to for 4 years. So the public aren't fools. They're not going to, if the mainstream media, I used to love those White House, White House meetings that she's at now, where the only person who made any sense was Pete Ducey from Fox. The rest of them were just literally repeating the Biden talking points. The public have moved, the public have come to distrust much of the mainstream media. I'm glad to say I'm part of Sky, which the public here trusts.